To me, the picture looks more grainy than it did on my other device, but I'm excited because I have a new device to record with. That's really opened things up for me in my psychology. It's more of what I need in order to do more that I like to do. So, new device today. How do you like it? um, I got on a wave of thinking, telling one story, and that led to another story, chain of consciousness thing, and ended up at, whoa, I've reached true creator mode. Ultimately, what that comes down to was I was triggered into this concept by a guy. I was watching his videos, and he has out-of-body experiences, and he describes the 12 realms and says that there's 144,000 souls. I don't know how he comes up with that, because they would all have to be split to inhabit all the bodies on Earth. But that's not the point. The point is, he has a fixed idea of what the heavens look like, the heavenly realms look like. And as above, so below, as within, so without. If you're allowing somebody to dictate and define for you what the outer heavens look like, and you're imprinting yourself on that idea, then that's what your inner kingdom is going to look like. And if you're told and you believe and you imprint on the idea what somebody else tells you where you fit in and what you are within those realms, that's all you're going to be. If I decide to organize my inner kingdom in a completely different manner, then my outer realm is going to reflect that organization. I create my own series of realms. When I have an out-of-body experience, I usually go into what I call the formless realms. When I learned how to channel, it's funny, I learned from trance channelers to become a conscious channeler. And so the first realms that I was channeling from was what I call the formless realms. And it's not, I don't get like telepathic messages or anything of that sort. I become one with other beings so that I feel what they're feeling. And then I give those feelings thoughts and translate those into words, and then I make them chronologically organized so that a regular human being can understand them. Because my goal was, I don't care that there's 1,000 angels singing a chorus over here or what. What do we do to make the daily walk of people easier, feel better? What I experience when I see in the formless realms is, yes, forms in the form of stars. Let me see. So it's just a bunch of black with white dots. And the consciousness is moving through here. Most people would look and say there's nothing there. But I can see that something is there because all things vibrate, all things move constantly. So I'll notice like a line passing through the stars as it goes by. And then I will be able to make out a form. So In that way, I can see the invisible. And having these experiences, I know that that realm that I see in the void, is not included in the realms that people are taught. This organization of, this is, the God realm, this is that realm, there's only 12 realms, and then this 13th unknown realm. So my inner kingdom doesn't have to be organized like that, and I don't have to view myself in a certain place within my own inner kingdom. And that's important to me because I've had the experience of, I'll get like precognitive vision of my house that I'm living in burning down. And one of them, it can sound like a horror show if you're perceiving without knowledge of what's happening. So in one case, I was shown that the house was burning down. Before it burnt down, there was a guy coming into this crumbled up city, and he was taking these small children and people that he was going to save, and he was taking them, he was putting them on a tree of thorns, he was piercing them onto the thorn tree, and one of them was a small child and it had a doll, and it wanted to bring its companion along, and so the guy swooped that one up and pierced it and its companion on the tree, and then the house burnt, and I could see who's coming out of the house with me. Now, ironically, I learned this next concept from a serial killer that I knew in person. They're in Slab City. He told me that for every person in our outer experience, we have two of them. He called them one good and one bad. He was obviously in a dualistic paradigm for himself. And so I was like, well, what are you going to do to me when, if you think that you're interacting with a bad version of me? So I cracked his skull. I told him, well, I work from the place of meet me in the field beyond right and wrong. Everything exists for a reason. We are to ask ourselves 3 questions. Who is it serving? How is it serving? And is it still serving to my highest good? After years of being trapped in Slab City, he'd try to leave. He'd get so far down the road, and then he'd wake up and he'd find himself back in the slabs. He was finally able to leave. I don't even know if he's gone back. It doesn't matter. I don't want to tap into that psychology. I don't need 2 versions of him in my house. So I had that experience, the house burning. So I know when I see, when I wake up from sleep and I'm having an experience of a house that is a representation of my inner kingdom. So when I first went to Slabs, I was thrilled. I could breathe so easy. I had a brand new house. I love woodwork, and it was all woodwork and, brand new rooms. I could really spread out, and I was free in my house. But within a few months, I had the experience of going to rest in my house, and every room that I looked into, it was filled with people. There was no room for me except on a little wooden platform that I could curl up there. I could rest in that little spot in my own house. So I've become determined to create a house where it is all mine, but I have a greeting room, and people are to approach me in that room with fully informed consent. Why are you there? And they're not allowed to, land anywhere in that house. They start off in the meet and greet room. They knock. They ask for entrance. And it's funny because now when I meet people, they're like, do I know you? It's like, well, it was probably arranged in a dream time beforehand. And I really do get better people in my experience. And I'm learning how to interpret experiences that look a certain way that I dreaded before because they made bad decisions, like a really, really shiny realm, and they pop in and they give me a gift, and then they end up taking that gift away. My dog Bink was one of those gifts that they gave me with the intention of having that dog killed so that it would cause a rift between myself and somebody else, because they don't like the amount of influence that I have for the better in people's lives. So that realm I'm always very cautious of. But the latest experience from that one was I'm interpreting and I'm choosing to have that experience. Them letting me know that they're going to allow me to have this thing that normally would not be allowed. So I'm excited about that. They're a necessary evil because I'm on Earth and they rule the Earth. Because everybody else is picturing the heavens the way they're told to picture the heavens. But I'm ornery. I don't do what I'm told, especially in the spiritual realms. I obey pretty much on the physical realms. I'm much braver in the spiritual realms. So creator mode is when we decide what our inner kingdom looks like. And that starts to restructure the outer kingdom. People goes with what feels better and what's easier. And my inner kingdom's a whole lot easier. So if just by nature, empathic nature, people start picking up that my structure is different, I'm happier, easier going than most people when I'm choosing where to go, when to go. And so it's just naturally going to affect the people around me because I don't go out with the agenda of changing people. To each their own. Healer, heal thyself. I was always healing other people. I'm working on, making sure I'm healed and whole. I am well. I don't know if this is too much, but it was on the part of the thought train that got me to, holy crap, I'm in creator mode. But one of the things that I had an experience of was out there in those, what I'm referring to as the formless realms, where it's just the void, where all you see basically is stars, little sparkly lights. And infinity versus eternity came up. What's the difference? What do they mean? Aren't they the same thing? No. We are eternal with an infinite number of experiences and embodiments. And I could see from within eternity. And that's that white environment. I wasn't in a box. Of course, mine's just all fluid. But you'll see people, like in movies, people will be in a white box talking to God. I was just in a white space by myself. But then, as I flipped over out of that white space, I was in infinity, where all those white sparkly things, all the infinite, eternal experiences, everything exists eternally within the void, which is infinity. But what I saw because people say, oh, there was a big bang, and that's where we all came from. It all happened at once. But an infinite number of eternal experiences, from this experience that I had, what I saw is not ending. Because what I saw was the form of a lady. So these lights, the lights, are pinpricks into eternity, which sees those pinpricks as black dots. And it was the form of a woman. And her head was down like this. And she was taking, like, picking at irritations and tossing them out. Just. So she was taking bits of eternity that were in conflict, irritating her infinite experience, and pulling them out from within herself and casting them off into the void. So this just kept going. So then I had the experience of that changing. A flower bud shot up and opened up, and the seed shot back to that eternity, that went back into that space of eternity and became something. And I keep seeing, well, this is the second time I've seen it, but every time I try to imagine it, it keeps showing up the same way as this flower blossoming. And part of that was the flower blossomed, it became fertile. And I shown, like, the earth and the earth's atmosphere. So the flower shot up, opened up petals just on the outside of the atmosphere, while another consciousness was trying to break into it before the blossoming. It didn't beat the blossoming, however. And then we had the white seed shoot back into eternity. And so now eternity can come and feed that flower. Something along those lines. Ever since that experience, I've seen, like, I'm passing by these openings, these holes. It's like big worms with nothing but gums, and there's eyes at the end of them, and passing into those and exploring those. And I imagine that those are other realities. So you have to go through the outer shell to get to the inner one. So I'm in a place where I'm exploring other realities and gaining from those experiences. And so all that's going to be happening within me. Just an infinite number of potentials. And what I set out to create was a pristine void. And I kept repeating to myself, serene spaces between serene places, or serene places between serene spaces. So serene inside and outside. And of course, I imagine that for everybody. It's just the natural thing to do. Because my spaces obviously can be as serene as they want. But if everything around me is not, then it's going to start disrupting all my serene spaces. And all the serene places to those serene spaces. That's what you start imagining and seeing and going through, or I do, when it occurs to me what it means to be a true creator of my experience. You know, I noticed as I went to investigate, say, for example, especially the Bible, you get a preacher get up there and they read you scripture and they tell you what it means, and they'll apply circumstances to it to give it context. But then you go back and that scripture means something completely different when read in the context of the original language and intended interpretations. For example, one is, Jesus said to turn the other cheek. If somebody slaps you, then turn the other cheek. What that means is, if somebody slapped you in one direction, they were a righteous person correcting an unrighteous person. But if they slapped you in the other direction, they were unrighteous in that doing. So when Jesus said, turn the other cheek, that means, you can do that. Why don't you hit me this way? Show me who you are. Go ahead, do it. So that's a completely different interpretation than we're taught. The one interpretation of turn the other cheek makes you subjective and submissive to abusive behavior. The other one says, I dare you, motherfucker, to fucking hit me like that. That's a very different interpretation. That's a more empowered one. That's the one, you don't scare me. You're only showing me who you are when you do that. And so it's the same thing with how we have lots and lots of people coming with out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, describing for us what the heavens look like. Everybody says, oh, they're all the same. They don't necessarily have to be all the same. I haven't gone through them all. I haven't been like a obsessive fanatic of them or a follower of these kinds of experiences. So I don't know. But I'm sure somebody out there's giving and allowing to come through the ones that suit the controlling people's version of what they want our kingdoms to look like, what they want us to imprint as our kingdom. And I just don't go along with that. I don't, and I won't. Let's see. There were other things in that chain of consciousness. For example, who recruited me to make a difference, to bring an awareness of the subtle consciousness of what I call the dance. It would be that eternal, a feminine within the infinity, the infinite, which couldn't, I'm the beginning and the end, and yet who is the Satan? I don't know where he comes from. You don't know where he comes from because you don't know where you come from. So God has a mother, and it's just that spirit, that more feminine spirit that I call the dance, is so subtle and so fine that it's a barely discernible breeze against the skin. And so attention had to be brought to that. So we live in a dualistic society, good and bad. But through my life, when given only two options, the right one and the wrong one, I would come up with a third option and shock the fuck out of everybody. Like, how'd she get out of that? How did she accomplish that? That's because I work with the more subtle and the formless. And I am a daughter of the dance. And I know it. So, because I had an infant son and a daughter, my consciousness resonated with that of the creature, one of the creatures that the humans are biologically related to. So when they did the genetic modifications or whatever, they ended up with us, and what they genetically modified ended up as these other creatures that people will call like the Sasquatch. The ones that I interacted with, they don't call themselves that. But what I was shown is like men coming, and we'd be out at the riding ring and they'd come and be like, ugh, it's them showing off again, taking over everything, just doing phenomenally well at everything compared to us. And then I had the experience, because I resonated with this one female, with the small son and the daughter, I could become one with her. So I could feel the feeling of holding, how she held her child close to her and the daughter standing next to her. And so these men, they came in pickup trucks upon this field with bright lights. And the clan leader, they don't call themselves Sasquatch or any other name that I've heard them, such creatures called by. And I won't say what they call themselves so that they can introduce themselves to whomever they want, because these are very powerful entities. So the big lights, the pickup trucks come upon this field. The clan jumps up. The clan leader tells everybody to go run to the woods, and he discusses with these people. They wanted to recruit a soul to be bait for this God source who didn't understand that the earth had its own consciousness. And because it didn't understand that there was already a consciousness in the earth, it was one of those seeds of eternity planted within infinity, and it was developing, growing. So for me, the experience was that God coming in, he saw something that he thought was formless and a waste, and he cut into it when he genetically modified it. And so he created abortions and premature children, and it felt like rape to the earth. But that God didn't understand that that's what it was doing, that it was being a rapist, that it was being a murderer, and all of that stuff. Very poor doctor. So it had to become aware that the earth did have its own consciousness, and the entities, the beings on it, were a reflection, an embodiment of that developing consciousness that it prematurely cut off and did all sorts of bad things to, all kinds of sodomized. And I don't know, the words coming to my brain now, it just, yeah, the epitome of all things human beings hate to believe others would do to one another. That's basically what those gods did to the earth. So I was recruited to be bait because, everybody loved me. I was Princess Pink because I just made everybody happy, and I was so well behaved. And I had the grandmother who'd be like, who couldn't like my Stacy? That's not possible. So I was the epitome of innocence as a child. And even as I grew up, people were more comfortable with me because I was more accepting and allowing of people to be themselves. I always found, the silver lining within their little clouded personalities. I always looked for the good in people and believed in the best potentials that I could see them possibly fulfilling. So that's how I was recruited, is by becoming bait to bring greater awareness to a God. And when I caught that God's attention, of course I was focused on me, and I have outer confirmation that all this crap is real because I was retraining my neural pathways. My house was about to burn down. I was losing people from my experience when it did. And I used to listen to the trance channeler, and I wouldn't listen to it live. I would wait to do that, listen to it once a month after it was already recorded, so I could, not miss anything. I could focus on it. I wanted to participate because what was scheduled was a guided meditation through the heavens. But I was having this experience, where my consciousness was being fought after and pulled in different directions. And, I just stomped down, this needs to end. And they brought me up into heaven. And again, being in the formless, I didn't see anything, but I was aware that through each level, I was coming into oneness with each of the goddesses' energy in all the levels, all the divine feminine, all the feminine energies I was being introduced to. And I know now that I wasn't crazy, or I wasn't imagining it, because when I went to listen to that guided meditation about the tour up in heaven, it turns out it was canceled due to an unforeseen event occurring in the heavens. It's like, nobody wants to believe that they're that person, Hey, you know what? I disrupted the entire hierarchy's plans up there in the heavens. No wonder they don't like me very much. But I didn't do it. The one you call God did. It was your king. He did it. But I realize now that I didn't allow myself to be conditioned or imprinted with a map of heaven, because I just go completely formless in my out-of-body experiences. I didn't have pictures or images of the various levels. There was no imprint. There was no cold, hard boundaries or rules. And so I don't have to have that on my inner kingdom. And that's how you end up in creator mode. You decide for yourself what the heavens and earth are to look like, what you want them to look like. And so that was just very exciting to me. And I've learned, normally I would be like right on it. Once I get on a roll like this, I'm like, oh, I have to record this, I have to do this. Instead, I waited because I didn't want to become a train wreck again, because the physical reality around me does not in any way, shape, or form reflect as close to what my spiritual experiences are, what my vibrational, emotional reality is like. And so I always end up like crash. I go on, I'm sailing off into these great feelings and these great places, and then I walk out my door. So I've learned to just settle down, let more information come in, because it's like when you start recording your dreams, you only remember bits and pieces. So you quick write that down, and then all of a sudden more of that dream comes to you, and you write that down, and then you expand on it, and then you realize you had this whole package of information, this huge experience in your sleep. And that's how you begin to remember those experiences. And then you don't really have to be asleep, taking out just one or two pieces and developing them. You're fully aware of the entire experience when you wake up. Let's see what else. Okay, so I was on the roll of... and it just went again. See, it's just too fast. I was developing something. This just happens. maybe because it needs more development, and that's what I was talking about, taking my time, developing, letting these things develop and expand. So the 2 days between this huge information train and now me recording it, I was having mundane experiences. I've been watching a series on the Marvel thing on Disney Plus. I was watching the series, and I'm getting insights into how I am changing in the here and now. And my primary manifestation of the new is the difference in how I feel when I perform certain acts that would be habitual. So, for example, you go to make your coffee in the morning, and it's just the sigh, and then this is what I have to this is what I have to look forward to. This is another. So we get in the habit of certain thoughts, certain feeling patterns when we're doing certain things, and it becomes almost like a natural law to us that, when we go into the bathroom, we just, this feeling comes over us. I'm changing up those feelings. So I'm keeping the same habits, but I'm changing the feelings associated with them. And then I'm slowly letting go of the habits, which are habits formed patterns in our house. And what we think about our day as we go through those habits forms the plan for our experience for the day. And so we're mapping out our day with emotional responses, emotional embodiments while we engage in our habits. And so we keep mapping out the same day, the same pattern, the same blueprint when we do that. And so first, the feeling, a different feeling comes. We could do that consciously by choosing a different feeling. I've learned I can choose a different feeling. I can feel in love with something. Our feelings are ours. We own them. They're just little packages, and we could just open them up and get a peek. Woo, this is what I want to feel right now. And we could change up those feelings as we go about our habits. And as we change those feelings, we are opening up to different potential feelings for other actions. For example, answering the phone. How do we feel when we answer the phone? Suddenly we're bringing a different feeling in. What the normally mundane hello, they're answering the phone, hello, it just starts bleeding into every other aspect of your life. And when someone comes to you and you're like, hi, you respond very differently than somebody who comes up to you and says, hi. And so everybody in our life is going to start they're just going to respond differently, unless they're used to, if they have an ingrained expected response from you or a greeting. Like, you look on your phone, it's your mom, you expect her attitude, you just respond. You don't hear the change in her voice. So one thing that we want to be conscious of is noticing the changes in people and not looking at them suspiciously. Be discerning. I'm always still discerning, but allowing the potential that people can change as we change. And that's why I'd made the other video. Are we like that sober wife with the drunken husband, spends years and years telling, if you would not drink, if you would stop drinking, if you would stop drinking, why don't you stop drinking? Well, he stops drinking, and then she doesn't know what role to play. So she goes off and has another miserable relationship where she's trying to convince somebody, why do you gotta smoke? Why did you stop smoking? Why you gotta go with your friends? Why you gotta gamble? Why you gotta, whatever she goes off on. Well, he finally meets somebody who loves that he's someone who overcame a very strong pattern and habit and is now a more compassionate and understanding person. She sees him for his compassion and understanding. And so we have a choice of which person we want to be. Are we going to be the person who needs for people to be ugly? Or are we the person who can allow for, maybe my neighbor's changing it up? Maybe they're looking at life in a new way. And that gives us more opportunity to feel good with that person, and we have one more person that we feel good around. Because when we spend our entire morning and our routine focusing on feeling good and expecting good, and then we walk out our door and we're slammed with the grumpy mailman and the horrible bus driver who's already been brought down by the people who got on before us, the bank tellers, the servers where you go for your coffee, your fellow employees, your children, your animals, even if you're out there homesteading and isolating, that animal that gives you hell every morning, that you hate to confront, are you ready to maybe expect something different, or were you raised to believe all bulls act this way, all bulls have to be treated this way, and it's never going to change, and so in your mind you don't allow it to change? Maybe that ornery animal can be your best friend, and you can have a more compassionate relationship from that beast, uncontrollable, unmanageable, dangerous thing in your environment. And that's how we go about becoming true creators. How we enter creator mode is not allowing other people to imprint patterns of anything on us. If we're going to be the creators, we start with our inner experience, and we allow the world around us to imprint on us rather than allowing it to imprint us on it. I don't know. I hope y'all have as much fun with this stuff as I do.